I think it's been over a year ago. I was at a climate change, not kind of protest or group that was downstairs at the Vista Council buildings, and she came down to see what was going on, and we met, and I was so impressed with her. Once I got to know her and talked with her, I was even more impressed with her energy, with her dynamism, with the vision she had for how she wanted to serve her constituents. So she's going to tell you how all of that happened. She ran for office, was elected. She now is a city councilwoman for Vista and represents Area 1. So it's my great pleasure to introduce Councilwoman Karina Contreras.
Hi, everyone. It is such a pleasure to be here. And Norlin, what a beautiful introduction. And yes, I remember that climate action, and that was actually our youth that from Rancho Buena Vista High School that led that. And they were joined by one of the Bronners from Dr. Bronner's, Mr. Bronner himself, grandchild Bronner, right? And it was incredible, right? And here in the city of Vista, we're just not used to seeing that type of civic engagement. And so just to give you guys a little bit of background information, my name's Karina Contreras. I was elected to Vista City Council to represent District 1 back in 2018. I beat a 2-term incumbent. He was running for his 3rd term and had been on the ballot 4 times. That was the 4th time he was on the ballot since he lost the first time he ran. And, complete underdog, right? Start off with 0 name ID and get to the win. So that's what you have to do when you run against an incumbent. But let's talk about why I even decided to run. So I'm 32 years old right now. And I'm just going to be honest with y'all. January of 2017 was the very first council meeting that I had ever been to. And, I sat there and I was looking at people that I circled the bubble next to their name to elect them. And I was really disappointed, more so in myself, because here I am, someone who is supposed to be educated, who spent all this money to get a bachelor's degree, and I'm not even able to vote properly in my own backyard because the people that are representing me are actually not representing my values at all. So I got really curious. I started to go to every council meeting. I started to speak at every council meeting, which really got some of my current colleagues a little bit, upset every once in a while. But that's civic engagement, right? You can go to a council meeting. If you want, you can it's your right. You can pull everything off the consent calendar and they just have to go with it. But instead of it being, feeling welcomed into your own household, from the tax money that you pay towards this grand building, instead it feels different. It feels like I'm not supposed to be there. Right. And so I kept getting that feeling. And then, there's some unfortunate circumstances here in Vista when we're looking at social justice, when we're looking at questions of equity. It's very, very easy to drive through Vista and just physically, visually see the difference. Even you can tell where District 1 starts. So District 1 is primarily a Latino district. And we have been left behind. It's the northwest corner of Vista. It's kind of the older part of Vista. And for a long time, people just didn't even know where to go, who to turn to when they had questions. So, I put all my eggs in the door knocking basket. This is pre-COVID and I didn't know how to run a campaign, right? I just knew that we weren't going to allow someone to go unchallenged. But I didn't even think I was going to run for council, but I had a community behind me and there was a catalyst moment. So here in Vista, the issues with the sheriff deputies. So back in 2017, a group of family members from two unarmed Latinos that were killed in a year by the same deputy. They were shot in the back. The families got together and decided to do a march. And so it was like a visual march, right? So we went to the two spots where these individuals were murdered. And it happens to be on the same street, but it's bisected by Melrose. So on either side, it's called something different. But the thing is that when we got together for a peaceful assembly of individuals that wanted to illustrate their grievances to their elected officials, to the city at large, we had a rally point at Food for Less. And what did I see there? This is the first time that I have ever, and I had been to a lot of protests. It was the first time ever that I parked my car and I was like, these are unmarked sheriff's vehicles. There's a drone above us. It was just so unusual. This is not what I would consider the right to assemble, right, peacefully. So we had maybe 20 people max. But it wasn't enough to have a drone on us, right? Then the helicopter came out. And then there was a caravan of SUVs from the sheriff's department, at least 10 deep, and they were following our march as we moved along, and they would take different vantage points. Well, we were coming back from our march back to Food for Less. We were about maybe 3/4 of a mile away. All of a sudden, the caravan pulls over, and they had identified one of the protesters as someone who had a felony warrant for their arrest for something. Well, it ended up being, mistaken identity. But what happened was the deputies came out. They had batons. I have pictures of this. I have video of it. And they separated the group from this individual. And it was a very tense moment. It was unnecessary. But, here's the thing is, why did we have to have that type of intimidation? Because that's what it was. It was intimidation. You had 20 people, mostly grandparents, tias, the kids that were left behind that don't have it anymore. They're protesting, and a few people who are not related to the family but are concerned, right? And I happen to fit, that category. But most of them were family members. And it was just infuriating. So we decided that we were going to go to city council because it was a council meeting that following Tuesday. We went, and one of the great things about learning a little bit more about how your local municipality works is that you get to figure out, okay, on the agenda, every single meeting in the city of Vista, it's at the very end, we have oral communications, public comment. So even if they're not speaking about something that you want to speak about, that's where you can go. And so that, to me, is the place where I want to get more civic engagement. I want more people going to public comment and speaking, filling out a speaker card. Let us know, right? And so that was a little thing that had started and was a catalyst for people going to the Civic Center. And so it's this structural inequity, structural poverty, the cycles of violence and aggression that are brought to our community. Well, we had a good amount of speakers, and people were saying what needed to be said. And it was actually being said in a very eloquent way. But one of my current colleagues decided that he wanted to talk about law and order. And he went on about law and order for a very long time and said, I know what you all are saying is that you're not saying that you don't want deputies, right? That you don't, but that's basically what you're telling us. And I just couldn't take it anymore. When you're in the audience, you all know you're not supposed to yell out to the council. But, I always sat in the front and I just couldn't take it anymore because we were there talking about two Latinos that were unarmed, that were shot in the back more than 10 times, each one of them. One had 16, one had 22 gunshot wounds, Sergio Wick, Jonathan Cornell. In 11 months, the same deputy who is still somewhere else. They just transferred him. We don't know where he's at. Well, I couldn't take it anymore. And I said, he was surrendering. He had his hands up. And then I got scolded, right? How dare this young Latina have something to say beyond her time to say something? And one of the council members said, you need to teach your community how to respect the sheriffs. And when they tell you to put your hands up, to put your hands up. This is what democracy looks like. You had your opportunity to speak. This is my opportunity to speak. And just went on and on and on and on and on. Well, that was pretty much the last straw. And I said, okay, you know what? I have people in the community saying, run. I have a council that does not at all reflect me. And even the people that have some of my shared values don't stand up to this person. So at the end of the day, you're pretty much agreeing, right, with that type of behavior. So I filled out my paperwork, my intent to run, and everything else is history. Won by 66 votes. It was a really close race. I didn't even know I was winning until like November 26th. It was a complete shock. But it really showed the city of Vista and other people that are, in other cities here in North County, because in North County, we've just had a lot of issues when it comes to white supremacy. Fallbrook is right next to Vista. We all know Fallbrook was a headquarters, right, for KKK activities. So, growing up as a young Latina here in Vista, where in high school we had Minutemen running around, right, raiding churches, doing these paramilitary type of operations without any repercussions. To go from that to actually running and winning on a progressive platform that talks about inclusive economic development, community safety, by talking about how we can allocate our funds towards different aspects of public safety, right? Not just hiring more deputies at $277,000 per deputy per year, when a street light costs about $100,000. And we have historically an area in Vista where crime is happening there and there's no lights, right? So why don't we look at simple solutions first and start also investing in our youth, because Vista has a really young population. So I know it's kind of long, but that's how I entered politics. So my academic background is I studied at the University of California, Santa Barbara. I double majored. I did film and media studies and sociology, and was really interested in that nexus between social movements and technology. So first time I've ever used, what I studied is actually as a council member, and it's been phenomenal because prior to this, I was like an accounts payable, receivable type of atmosphere, right? Totally different. I'm going to take a look here and see. So barriers. Well, I am Latina. I'm also part of the LGBTQI plus community. I'm the first elected queer Latina in Vista. And I think that's really important to bring representation in to show intersectionality, right? My dad, when I was in college, was deported. Not that many kids, can look at an elected official and know that they have had a similar experience where they're afraid of authority figures coming to the door and knocking, right? Like, what do you do? Like, you're supposed to run, right? And so I just bring a different type of connection to my community that really was absent. And for me, it is every day I am reminded of how important it is for me to be in the position that I am. Not only because it's crafting policy, right? Not only because we get to set the big picture for this city and what happens in the future, but people need to understand that they have the ability